Good evening and welcome. You're watching Primetime News on TV1. Today is the 1st of June 2022. For the News First team, I'm Miyuki Portia. And before we head into stories in detail, let's start off with a look at tonight's headlines.
CID arrests Duminda Silva. Johnston Fernando named as suspect over May 9th unrest. MPs Sanath Nishanta and Milan Tilaka remanded. IGP appears in court, gives reasons for not transferring senior DIG Deshabandhu Thenakon. Imports based on permit system removed. Surcharge tax imposed. Cost of many goods including fruits go up. Political interference when distributing Indian aid. Grama-Liladari officers to abstain from services. Vikum Lianage assumes duties as Sri Lanka's new army commander.
Starting off with your top story this evening, the Criminal Investigations Department arrested former parliamentarian Duminda Silva today. He was arrested at the Sri Javadhanapura General Hospital. Prison officials were seen visiting the Sri Javadhanapura General Hospital.
Former parliamentarian Duminda Silva was admitted to the Sri Javadhanapura Hospital due to a sudden illness today. Police spokesperson Nihal Talduwa said Silva was arrested by CID officers at the hospital. The Supreme Court yesterday suspended the presidential pardon granted to the former parliamentarian. He has been sentenced to death over the murder of former parliamentarian Bharata Lakshman Premachandra. The court issued an order to arrest Duminda Silva after permitting the examination of petitions filed by 3 people. Hirunika Premachandra and her mother were among those who filed petitions. The petitioners argued that the process that needs to be followed when awarding a presidential pardon was not followed in the case of Duminda Silva.
Sri Lanka's police chief appeared in court today to provide reasons on not transferring senior DIG Deshabandhu Thenakon after the unrest that broke out on the 9th of May.
General of Police C.D. Vikramaratne appeared at the 4th Magistrates Court today. He provided reasons for not transferring senior DIG Deshabandhu Thenakon in his connection to the unrest that broke out on May 9th. In a report submitted to court, the police chief said he does not have the power to transfer a senior DIG. He said such a transfer should be made by the Public Service Commission. The IGP told court he had passed on the Attorney General's directive to transfer the senior DIG to the Public Service Commission. In a previous hearing, lawyers representing protesters in Colombo had questioned why Deshabandhu Thenakon continues to serve as the senior DIG of the Western Province. Additional Solicitor General Ayesha Jenasena appeared for the Attorney General today. She informed 4th Magistrate Thilina Gamage that former Minister Johnston Fernando will be named as a suspect in connection to the attacks on peaceful protesters on May 9th. The Additional Solicitor General said the Criminal Investigations Department is consulting 2 psychiatrists on the former minister's statement at Temple Trees before the unrest broke out.
The main masterminds are yet to be produced in court. Today they have named Johnston Fernando as a suspect, but Deshabandhu Thenakon was the one who created the environment to carry out these attacks on Gota Gogama on Black Monday. Bring Deshabandhu Thenakon to court. Even the president has said that a telephone call was made to stop the attacks on protesters at Gota Gogama. The people must know this. Senior DIG Thenakon had ignored the instructions of the police chief and the president and allowed the attacks to occur. Upon whose wishes had he acted? 13 suspects, including parliamentarians Sanath Nishanta and Milan Fernando, were remanded until the 8th of this month over the unrest that broke out on May 9th. The suspects include Vasantha Handapangoda, a leader of the SLPP Teachers Trade Union. 6 suspects, including 2 parliamentarians, were produced before court today through Skype. President's Counsel Tirantha Waladiyatne has resigned from his post as a special representative of the Human Rights Commission of Sri Lanka. He was appointed to the committee investigating the attacks on peaceful protesters on the 9th of May. The President's Counsel, who was appointed to the post on the 17th of May, told Newsfirst he resigned due to personal reasons. The Human Rights Commission said 2 new members have been appointed to this committee.
The President has appointed a commission of inquiry to investigate and report on all types of property losses and loss of life, including arson, robbery and murder, which took place in several areas of the island between 31st March and 15th May. Supreme Court Justice President's Counsel P.B. Aluvihare has been appointed as the chairman of the commission. Former senior DIG S.M. Vikramasinghe and additional chief assessor N.A.S. Wasantakumara form the rest of the commission. Additional secretary to the President Buaneka Herath has been named the secretary of the commission.
In a letter to the Attorney General, the Bar Association of Sri Lanka has expressed its grave concern regarding the investigations into the attack on peaceful protesters at Golface on the 9th of May. The letter read, quote, "Despite it being clear that many persons were involved in it, we are concerned that only a few of the perpetrators have been arrested and produced in court." End quote. The BASL further said that they are also concerned that the CID has failed to arrest and produce people who have been clearly identified and who instigated the violence and conspired to commit the violence. The BASL also added their concern on the inaction of the CID to take steps against senior police officers despite there being clear evidence of dereliction of duty on their part. The Bar Association of Sri Lanka called on the Attorney General to take appropriate measures to ensure that there is no further erosion of public confidence in the criminal justice and the institutions concerned. For 54 days, people have been protesting at Golface, demanding President Gotabaya Rajapaksa to resign. Heavy rains did not stop them from protesting today as well.
At the Gota Gogama protest site opposite the President's office in Colombo, protesters reinstalled tents that were damaged due to rains yesterday. People marched from the protest site to the statue of former Prime Minister SWRD Bandaranaike today. This was in memory of Russian Chanaka, who was shot dead during protests in Katunaika 11 years ago. Family members of Russian were also present. Students from the University of Sri Jayawardhanapura took steps to clean up the Golface beach today. Do you know what the new taxes are and how they will affect you?
Images showing children carrying umbrellas while sitting for the O-level exams have stirred controversy in the country. Newsfirst took a closer look at this story today.
Images on social media showed candidates sitting for the ordinary level examination in a classroom that was leaking due to heavy rain. A Newsfirst investigation found that these pictures were of a classroom at Takshila Vidyalaya in Gampaha. The classroom at Takshila Vidyalaya is located in a building that was constructed in 1998.
Our country experienced heavy rain in May. For many years, we have seen floods during this period. Authorities choose May to conduct the O-level exam. Yesterday, we saw how the answer sheets of students were soaked in water. They had aesthetic subjects yesterday. The main subject was art. This ruined the paintings of the candidates who used watercolors. There were pictures on social media. We tell those in power to avoid playing with the lives of the children. Their exams have an impact on their future.
The Examinations Commissioner General has blamed the invigilator and the principal of the school over the incident.
විභාග ශාලාධිපතිගේ කාර්යභාරය වෙන්නේ
Is it the duty of an invigilator to take photos when children are being drenched and then release it on social media, or is the invigilator supposed to move the candidates to a separate center? They have to do their job properly. They have done something that wasn't their job. The invigilator had acted like a child. If there are classes in which there are no leaks, they can move the children to that. They must provide the best possible classroom for them. The principal of Takshila Vidyalaya had not provided a good classroom. I heard that students had been writing the exam by carrying umbrellas every day. Why do they have to carry umbrellas? We haven't asked them to use only that classroom. We allowed classes to be changed. We changed an entire exam center in Putlam. We gave extra time for the candidates. The minister instructed us to conduct an investigation into this. We will inquire into these children. We will mark their papers separately. We will consider the difficulties faced by the children. If they haven't faced any injustice, then there is no issue. But this system is wrong.
Extreme weather continues to batter most parts of the island. The first death as a result of floods was reported from Kuruvita in Ratnapura today.
A 40-year-old father of two was swept away in a current last night in Kuruvita, Ratnapura. He met with this tragedy while travelling home after work last night. Ratnapura District Secretary Malini Lokapotagama said the deceased was serving as a disaster relief officer attached to the Kiryala Divisional Secretariat. Many low-lying areas in Kuruvita continue to be inundated. Water levels of the Kalu River are receding gradually. The areas of Ratnapura, Verulupa, Mudduva, Batugedara and Alapatha are still underwater. Today was the last day of the GCE ordinary level examination. Candidates residing in flood-affected areas had been granted permission to take the exam at the nearest examination centre. A special boat service had also been launched to assist the candidates. Our cameras captured the manner in which officers attached to the Mirisa camp of the Sri Lanka Coast Guard transported school students in Panadu Gama Kurasa to the examination centres. The Dambapa Atambagas Handia along the Molkava road in Bulak Singhala continues to be inundated as a result of the Kuda river overflowing. Students in the area sitting for the O-level examination travel to their respective examination centres amid many difficulties. The Agalia and Udugama roads in Bategama were flooded owing to the Ging River overflowing. According to the water meter placed in Bategama, water levels of the Ging River had risen. Low-lying areas surrounding the Kalu River had reached minor flood levels based on the water meter placed in Kiryala. Hinuduma, Eppavala and Panangala areas in Gaul had been inundated owing to the Ging River overflowing. Floodwater in Udugama and Pittigala areas in Gaul have not receded as of yet. A fallen bamboo branch had blocked the flow of water of the Ging River from the bridge situated in Mapalagama. Vallampitiya, Vennawatha and Kalini Gama are still underwater as a result of the Kalini River overflowing. Lowlands situated along the Athanagalu Oya were inundated since water levels had risen. The Department of Meteorology says showers or thunder showers can be experienced in the western, Sabaragamuwa and northwestern provinces as well as the Kandy, Nuwara, Gaul and Mathura districts. Landslide warnings have been issued to 8 districts by the National Billion Research Organisation as a result of the incessant rainfall. The Prime Minister has notified the Treasury to allocate funds to provide relief to those who have been impacted by floods. The process will be carried out through district secretaries.
Still in local news, the Finance Ministry has increased taxes to boost government revenue. The ministry has published a gazette to increase value-added taxes by 4%. Meanwhile, the ministry has also imposed a 100% surcharge rate on general and preferential custom duty of imported goods.
What is this surcharge rate? The surcharge rate will be imposed in addition to the preferential and general duty on imported goods. The additional charge will be calculated based on the payable tax. The new rate has been imposed after relaxing import restrictions on 369 items that were imposed on the 10th of March. How does the new surcharge work? The Finance Ministry imposed a 200% surcharge on chocolate and other food prepared using cocoa. The surcharge imposed on imported cheese is 100%. This means the 1000 rupee tax on a kilogram of imported cheese is now 2000 rupees. The surcharge tax on cigars, cigarettes and liquor would be 100% in addition to the import tax. The surcharge rate on garments, electrical and household appliances have also been increased by 100%. The additional rate on several fruits, grains and flour would be 75%. Accordingly, the surcharge imposed on imported apples and grapes will go up from 300 to 600 rupees. The tax imposed on imported oranges, which stood at 200 rupees, has now increased to 600 rupees. According to the Gazette, the surcharge on products such as perfumes and items used for oral hygiene stands at 75%. The surcharge on items such as glassware, household items and sanitary ware ranges between 50 and 75%. The Finance Ministry said these taxes will be in effect for 6 months.
Now, how will the new taxes impact the public? Let's take a look.
The tax concessions granted in 2019 resulted in Sri Lanka losing over 900 billion rupees of state revenue in 2020 and 2021, compelling the government to fund its large deficits by printing money. How will these taxes impact Sri Lanka's economy?
The tax changes yesterday can be seen to be moving closer to what the tax policies were prior to the 2019 changes. However, there are certain variations. For instance, if you're looking at the VAT rates that were imposed prior to the changes, they were at 15%. Yesterday, it was changed to 12%, lower than what we had previously, but it is estimated to bring in revenue of about 150 billion next year. Also, in line with the personal income tax rates, yesterday this was changed from 4% to 32%. Similarly, there was also the reintroduction of the withholding tax on income, which was removed in 2019. All this is estimated to bring in revenue of 20 billion next year. If you're looking at standard corporate tax rates, they've increased this to 30%. And concessionary rates on sectors like construction will now be taxed at 15%. All this is expected to bring in around 70 billion worth of revenue. All in all, these tax changes that will be imposed after yesterday will bring in 300 million estimated for next year.
The central bank yesterday announced that inflation in the Colombo district in May this year had risen to 39%, with food inflation surpassing 57%. How will the higher tax regime affect cost of living?
Unfortunately, it will add to the expenses to all of us, and this also at a time when prices are increasing already. However, this can be seen to be more preferable than the money printing that has led to high rates of inflation. Inflation acts as the most aggressive form of tax. This will be needed to help us achieve some sort of macroeconomic stability for the coming years. What is also important to highlight is that all these changes that are taking place, they need to take place within a robust program of economic recovery. This will help us to build credibility at the government in international markets, investors and multinational agencies like the IMF.
There were long lines of people to purchase cooking gas in many parts of the country today as well. Litrogas Lanka Limited says it distributed 50,000 gas cylinders to the market today. Gas cylinders were distributed from Muthurajawala storage terminal. However, there were long queues in many areas. In Akarepathu, people were in long queues after they were informed that they would receive gas after 2 weeks. However, they had to return home empty-handed. People then held a protest by blocking the entrance to the divisional secretary's office. For 3 days, people in Batiklu have been in queues to purchase gas. Parliamentarians Govindan Karnakaram and Shanakyan Razamanikam arrived in the area. A group of people held a protest by blocking the A9 road in Kilinochi demanding gas. There were long queues for gas since last night in Trincomalee, which received a new stock today. Tensions arose after people were informed that gas will not be sold at the location of the queue. A group of people held a protest by blocking the Nigambo-Colombo main road in Dalaputha after 4 days of being in queue. Meanwhile, private bus drivers are warning they will not operate by next week if they cannot buy diesel.
We were tolerating this as children had to go for their exams. We operated amidst many difficulties. There is no need to be in queue. They can sell diesel to us using technology. They can use technology to sell gas. Why aren't they introducing this system?
News First with the people.
Duminda, by the people, for the people. Let's now toss over to a short commercial break. Do stay with Newsfirst. We will be right back.
පුරා ගලන මේ සතුට සුරක්ෂිත කරන්නේ Eslon Insight. Eslon ජීවයයි ජලයේ ජීවිතේ.
Welcome back to the news. Lieutenant General Vikum Lianage assumed duties as Sri Lanka's 24th Army Commander today.
Lieutenant General Vikum Lianage was given a warm welcome at the Army headquarters today. He assumed duties after accepting the wishes of senior officers.
Dhammang saranang gacchāmi. Thank you so much.
Vikum Lianage, a past pupil of Vijay College in Matale, joined the Sri Lanka Army as a cadet officer on the 27th of October 1986. He received his training at the Sri Lanka Military Academy in Diatalava and Pakistan Military Academy. Upon completing his training successfully, he was posted to the Gajupa Regiment of the Sri Lanka Army. During his 35-year career, Vikum Lianage has held many significant command and instructional positions. He has followed many overseas courses in the US, India, Pakistan and Indonesia. Vikum Lianage commanded the 8th Gajupa Regiment of the 57 and 56 divisions, which were actively conducting operations during the humanitarian operation. He has received many gallantry awards, including the Rana Vikrama Padakama and the Rana Sura Padakama for his conduct in the army.
Up next is Crime Watch.
Crime Watch.
රසයෙන් Rasendra Nyadursi, a 16-year-old in Ganeshapuram in Vaunia, was found murdered on Monday night. She had disappeared after leaving home to attend tuition. The teenager's body was found inside a well near her house around 4 hours after her murder. A post-mortem examination has revealed that Rasendra Nyadursi has not been sexually abused. The Vaunia Judicial Medical Officer has determined that the girl had died due to drowning. Why did a cadaver dog used to help in the investigations lead officers to an abandoned shop near the well? Several liquor bottles had been found near the shop as well. The owner of the shop has said that the liquor bottles had been left there a week ago. A 29-year-old man arrested over the killing of 9-year-old Aisha Fatima provided a confidential statement today. The suspect had made the statement to Panadura Chief Magistrate Jairu Andisanayaka. What had the suspect told during his confession? Two dead bodies that were found at a house in Kalutara were moved to the Nagoda hospital for a post-mortem examination. The Judicial Medical Officer has instructed to send samples of the remains to the government analyst. A 69-year-old father was found dead on a chair while his 33-year-old daughter was found dead on the floor. The mother had told the police that her daughter had consumed a liquid after her gastritis condition worsened and had thrown up afterwards. A discharge similar to blood was spotted around her eyes. A similar stain was visible on her foot as well. What is the truth behind these deaths?
Crime Watch.
Moving on, the People's Force Against Bribery, Corruption and Waste filed complaints with the Bribery Commission and the Criminal Investigations Department today.
The complainants sought a probe into the payment of $6.9 million to a controversial fertilizer cargo and the compensation that is yet to be obtained over the Express Pearl maritime disaster. $6.9 million had been paid for a fertilizer shipment. What happened to this payment? There was no fertilizer unloaded from that. The Agriculture Minister at that time, Mahindananda Alutgamage, the Agriculture Secretary and other relevant officials must be punished before the law. The money must be recovered. We had a good opportunity to receive a large amount of dollars after the Express Pearl maritime disaster. I believe that officials and politicians had swindled these funds. I filed a complaint with the then Ports and Shipping Minister Rohitha Abegunawardena, Minister Secretary U.D. Jayalal, Director of the Sri Lanka Ports Authority and the Marine Environment Protection Authority Chairperson. This must be investigated. The money must be given to the people. If there are officials who have committed mistakes, they must be punished. I am asking these institutions to function independently. The Sri Lanka Government Officers Trade Union Association says its members won't take part in distributing the Indian aid package among the people. They are citing political interference in the process. In the estate sector, Thondaman is exerting influence to distribute these items. When politicians are being rejected by the people, they have no right to distribute an aid pack received from overseas. We are directly accusing Jeevan Thondaman of interfering into this. Don't do that. Officials will take care of the poor in the estate sector. We asked for guidelines to be given to us. Officials at grassroots levels can identify the poor, but the government and state officials have failed to provide guidelines for the distribution. Political groups are threatening our officers. It doesn't matter to us as to where we received this aid from. Allow us to distribute this according to a set guideline. If politicians are interfering into this, we will abstain from distributing this immediately. The distribution of a 2 billion rupee relief package from India took place in many parts of Sri Lanka today. Aid was distributed to 4,125 families in Kinya in the Trincomalee district. About 1,000 families in Verugal and 1,934 families in Haputale also received the aid package.
Still in local news, the Confederation of Professionals for a National Policy, a group of professionals and youth involved in the people's struggle, has handed over a brief proposal to President Gotabaya Rajapaksa outlining actions to be taken to resolve the current political and economic crisis. Now, the President's Media Division said the proposal was handed over to the President at the President's official residence today.
Discussions had also been held during the meeting on near, medium and long-term solutions to the current political, social and economic crises, as well as introducing a people-centric new constitution. The President's Media Division said another discussion will be held in the coming days after assessing the 11 points put forward through the proposal.
A group of officials attached to the State Administrative Service met opposition leader Sajith Premadasa today. One could say it is easier to become the president, so executive presidency must exist. Another could say an executive prime minister role must exist because one can somehow gain a majority in parliament. We are against such amendments. Those are not scientific proposals. They are more focused on individual interests. No one should enjoy the ability to make arbitrary decisions or even decisions made within a small group. Some have called for a referendum to change the system. That is not an issue. When possible, that referendum can be held alongside a general election. Why can't they create 150 votes to support the 21st? They now claim we are against the 21st Amendment. We are not. But we do oppose a powerless 21st Amendment. A person who wasn't elected into Parliament is now the Prime Minister. Has that appointment strengthened or weakened democracy? The mandate of the people is not being represented in Parliament.
පාර්ලිමේන්තු නියෝජනය විකෘතියක්. අද රටේ ජනමතය නෙවෙයි පාර්ලිමේන්තුවේ තියෙන්නේ.
Let's now toss over to another short commercial break.
साथ साथ ऐसा कोई नूर आया है.
Indian singer KK dies after falling ill while performing.
මොකද මහත්තයා මේ නෑ මේ ගෙදර සිංක් එකේ අයි මහත්තයා ස්ලෝන් නෙවෙයිද දැම්මේ හදිසියට බාලා පයිප්පයක් දැම්මේ නැද්ද මුදලාලි ඊයේ පෙරේදා කඩේ රිපෙයාර් කරන්න ගෙනාපු ගම් චුට්ටා මේ වගේ ප්‍රශ්න වලට හොඳම විසඳුම ස්ලෝන් ගම් චුට්ටා හැබැයි ඉක්මනින් දාගන්න ස්ලෝන් පයිප්පයක්
ස්ලෝන් ගම් චුට්ටා හැම ගෙදරකම සිටිය යුතු ජනනල කාර්මිකයා දැන් රඟම ග්‍රොසරියෙන් මිලදී ගන්න.
Welcome back to the news. The Department of Agriculture has requested farmers who have not yet cultivated in the Yala season to commence cultivation before the 10th of next month. But the farmers are left helpless with no fertilizer.
Dr. Ajantha Silva, the Director General of the Department of Agriculture, said only 50% of the expected paddy fields have been harvested for the Yala season. He said to prevent food shortages, it is essential to cultivate the entire land during the Yala season. Farmers complain that forcing them to cultivate without providing fertilizers and agrochemicals will not solve the problem.
You can't even harvest 20% this season. Although they somehow protect their chairs, we can't cultivate like that. The Minister of Agriculture recently said that children in the future will suffer from malnutrition.
Experts say that Sri Lanka's prevailing fertilizer crisis will further worsen due to the rising fertilizer prices globally. Skyrocketing fertilizer costs like those made from nitrogen, phosphorus and potassium are driving up food prices and worse, threatening food security around the globe. According to data compiled by the International Food Policy Research Institute, prices were up by 125% in January from a year before and rose another 17% from the beginning of the year to March. In Brazil, an agricultural powerhouse, prices have surged 185% over the past year, hitting records above $1,100 a ton. In Europe, they are up by 240% to €875 a ton.
The National Audit Office reveals that the value of the foreign debt has doubled in its rupee value considering the fluctuation of the exchange rate.
According to the Auditor General's report on the government's financial statement for the year 2021, the balance of foreign debt as at the 31st December 2021 stands at $34,130,219,447 The report says that considering the then exchange rate of rupees 200, the value thereof amounted to 6,841 billion in rupees. However, as the value of the exchange rate as at 30th May 2022 amounted to rupees 360, the value of foreign debt has now doubled to 12,313 billion rupees. According to the National Audit Office report, growth in the debt balance caused by the fluctuations in exchange rate have not been disclosed in the financial statements. In another revelation, the National Audit Office says a balance of 161,332 rupees for constructing the Hambantota harbour is yet to be settled. As per the Cabinet decision dated 4th August 2017, they said the loan balance had been accepted by the Treasury to be effective from the date of the said agreement coming into being. However, according to the report, the loan balance had not been shown in the financial statements of the government for the year 2021, and the same balance had been omitted from the financial statements of the Ports Authority as at 31st December 2021 as well.
Submitting its review report on Sri Lanka to the United Nations, the Human Rights Watch recommends that authorities must stop using security and intelligence agencies to intimidate and suppress civil society activists and organizations. In the review, the Human Rights Watch also recommended the UN Human Rights Committee to ensure that the Constitution protects the independence of the judiciary and of other institutions responsible for protecting human rights and the rule of law, reverse changes introduced by the 20th Amendment that undermined the independence of the judiciary and administration of justice, amend or repeal and replace all laws enabling the imposition of states of emergency, promptly repeal the PTA and replace it with counter-terrorism legislation, investigate and prosecute cases of attacks and killings of journalists. The HRW submitted its review to the United Nations Human Rights Committee in advance of its 6th periodic review of Sri Lanka at the committee's 135th session, scheduled to be held from the 27th of June to the 27th of July this year. The Asia-Pacific Alliance for Disaster Management coordinated the provision of vital and essential medicine to the Ministry of Health.
APAD Sri Lanka has secured pharmaceuticals amidst high demand and existing shortages of goods in the market. Medication worth over a sum of 10 million rupees was officially handed over to the Ministry of Health. These medicines were prioritized for the vital and essential medicines listed out by the MOH.
Now, another phase of the Divisavya program was held in the Kaluthara district today. The Divisavya program, sponsored by LOLC Holdings, aims to support low-income families in many parts of Sri Lanka.
The Divisavya program, sponsored by LOLC Holdings to distribute dry rations among families in need, entered its 22nd day. Dry rations were distributed to people across many areas in the Kaluthara district. Under the Divisavya program, essential goods are distributed to low-income families facing serious financial difficulties.
In news overseas, Indians are paying their tributes to popular singer KK, who died unexpectedly last night, hours after performing at a concert.
Tamil, Telugu and Kannada.
And finally, in sports news, Sri Lanka's Duminda has finished 5th in the 2022 Golden Spike Athletic event in Ostrava. With that, it's a wrap of primetime news here on TV1. For more of these stories, you can log on to our website www.newsfirst.lk. Take care and good night.